If you did not see my last video, I strongly encourage you to watch that one first. This is a continuation of my analysis of the movement of the celestial objects on the flat Earth model. There are many reasons one might believe the Earth is flat, and to date the animation being shown is the best model I can find. In the flat Earth model, the Sun and Moon are small and close and circle above the Earth some 3,000 miles or 5,000 kilometers. Some say they might be twice as far, but not much farther than that. In this video, I plan to look at the Moon and maybe stare and gaze at the Moon, but to stay more to the point, to discuss the Moon's behavior and its various observations. The Sun and the Moon follow very similar paths in the sky. However, day by day, you can see how the Sun overtakes the Moon so that once every 29.530,587,981 days, approximately, both the Sun and the Moon appear to the observer to return to the same relative positions to each other they were in a month before. One observation we can easily make that I have yet to hear any flat Earth defender attempt to explain involves the solar and lunar positions. The animation shown earlier is a very simplified model that does not show the seasons. But in all the animations I have seen, everyone shows the Moon 12 hours behind the Sun. In my last video, I show how the Sun arcs across the sky from our point of view 15 degrees every hour, and the Moon also does almost the same 15 degree per hour arc. The difference accounts for the Moon's phases and its change in position to the Sun over time. The full Moon, for example, is just rising in the east as the Sun is just setting in the west. But the Moon's first quarter is 6 hours behind the Sun, so as the Sun is just setting, the Moon is at its zenith. We can estimate or predict the future position of each, and the Moon is certainly the leading suspect of solar eclipses. Therefore, it should be no great leap of logic to blame solar eclipses, lost car keys, and weight gain caused by jelly donuts on the Moon. Since the Moon gets between the Sun and the observer, the Moon is necessarily closer. But what about lunar eclipses? A solar eclipse has a very hard and pronounced shadow of the Moon's outer diameter against the Sun, and correlates with the Sun and Moon being in the same position at that same time. But a lunar eclipse is nothing more than a reddish hue that passes over the Moon's surface. It also does not show the obviously clear same cause and effect that a solar eclipse shows. If the Moon always showed the same pattern of light and shaded areas, and there were no moon phases, it would be easier to say the Moon is its own light source. If we look closely, shadows appear in different directions during different phases, suggesting strongly that the Moon's surface is irregular, and the shadows are the result of light striking the surface at different angles, revealing craters and other irregularities. The Moon's phases and surface shadows observed lead us to conclude that the Moon is instead being illuminated by a separate light source. But the pattern we observe do not match the flat Earth model. When the Moon is full, its position lags behind the Sun by 12 hours, and as shown from a solar eclipse, the Sun must be higher in altitude, ruling out the Sun as its light source. It's impossible for the Sun to fully illuminate the Moon from the angles involved. The only way you can see the Sun illuminate the near side of the Moon is if the Sun was projecting its light towards the Moon from beneath. For the Moon to be illuminated by the Sun, it has to be higher in altitude than the Sun to be able to reflect the Sun's light. But it means the Moon could not cause solar eclipses. As the Moon descends below the height of the Sun, its full illumination by the Sun becomes impossible. However, solar eclipses become possible. Another serious problem with the Moon is the cause of the reddish hue during a lunar eclipse. First, the red tint starts on one side, slowly moves across to cover the entire Moon. Then, as if the Moon was crossing a point in space, the reddish tint slowly proceeds to vanish off on the other side of the Moon. One might even be led to believe that the moon happened to cross the shadow of an object, so that the red colors were the only colors not blocked by the object. Simple explanations are not possible on a flat Earth. What sort of explanation can we come up with that fits the flat Earth model and correlates with our observations? In researching the moon, apart from the many moon landing hoax videos, I found other fantastic tales. In my last video, to work around the observed incongruities of the sun's movement on the flat Earth model, I suggested psychic, surfboarding, pink unicorns as an explanation. What could explain our observations of the moon? The best explanation I can come up with to fit the wildest tales is so outrageous it must be true. It touches on so many subjects, it may very well be the grand unifying theory of countless stories, anecdotes, and conspiracy theories. I would be shocked if there was a better explanation that shares a common thread for each of them. If the sun has circled the opposite side of a flat Earth where the observer cannot see even the faintest glow of light in the distance where the sun should be, why does the full moon defy all forms of logic by being fully illuminated? Surely if both the sun and the moon are on an orbital plane much higher than the observer, and only open sky is between each object and the observer, then for the moon to reflect the sun's light, it must mean the observer can also see the sun directly, unless the moon is not illuminated externally at all. According to my research, some believe there is a distinct possibility that the moon is an alien spacecraft of some type that looks like the moon. It's sort of like a secret third Death Star that was abandoned just after it was completed and happened to drift into our corner of the universe. But that does not quite fit the domed flat Earth model, so sorry to disappoint any Star Wars fans out there. I'm speculating on this point, but from my research, it seems green reptilian lizard aliens must have realized they were trapped in their own dome-like planet and developed a sort of hyperdrive capable of creating a wormhole, and they were able to escape the confines of their own world. It would seem at some point, possibly due to a malfunction, they entered our Earth dome and are now stuck here. According to some, the reptilians are shapeshifters, so that would account for sightings of Yeti, Bigfoot, and other similar encounters. Also, they must surely have smaller craft docked inside their moon-shaped mothership, which explains UFO sightings. They might be getting a little bit squirrely confined in that mothership by this time and come out from time to time for a sort of rest and relaxation. Not to mention the influence they hold over governments by working with them for nefarious purposes that our gullible leaders fall for. Being shapeshifters, they can also impersonate us, which helps explain how some politicians almost seem human. But back to the moon. The moon, or alien mothership, to last this long, must be made of organic technology, and the outer skin to self-illuminate must be bioluminescent. Very much like OLED or organic LED technology, only more advanced to last this long. You can think of the moon as a gigantic, self-propelled, round-shaped television that only shows a crater-filled landscape. Long before our oldest written texts, and much older than our oldest oral traditions, these reptilians must have entered into a competition with the pink unicorns to see which one could win a long-lasting endurance race, sort of like the Indianapolis 500 on steroids. It's obvious the reptilians are losing the race to the pink unicorns, which is probably making them understandably irritable. The alien craft is also probably failing, which explains the lunar eclipses, since its reddish hue is an indication of the craft overheating, or possibly a malfunction in its lighting system. The reptilians and pink unicorns quite possibly communicate with each other telepathically, and being in a race to see which one can do the most number of laps, the 15-degree-per-hour arc across the sky we observe the sun and moon making could also be explained as a form of psychic interference. What other explanation is possible for both solar and lunar eclipses? Not to mention the fact that the moon makes a similar arc across the sky that parallels the sun's movement. that the moon is a giant ball of rock in space circling the Earth, which is also a giant ball of rock covered in water circling a huge ball of hydrogen undergoing nuclear fusion, which is circling around the center of a massively huge galaxy? Does that sound any more credible than green alien lizard people who came here in a hyperdrive-capable spacecraft and got caught up in a millennia-old endurance race with pink unicorns who ride the sun like a surfboard? Is the Earth an oblate spheroid, as NASA claims? Or is the Earth flat like a pizza and covered in a giant dome shaped like a bell jar? I guess we will never know the true nature of this reality, and the answer to these questions may very well remain a mystery. But I do know that pizzas are delicious, especially when they are loaded with lots of cheese and pepperoni and mushrooms and onions and olives, meatballs and bacon. Excuse me. I think I need to make a phone call.